Hey there, Happy New Year. Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. Uh, yeah, it's a new year, 2021. Uh, Hopefully, it's a better year than what we just left behind us. But you know, there's always remnants of something from last year. It's always left behind. That's it's like an old wound that you just keep scratching on it and scratching and scratching. But first, before we really start, thank you those who have subscribed. I think we've had our biggest push for subscribers. We're getting close to 300. I'll tell you, folks, we're getting close to that 300. I think we've had so many subscribers over the holiday weekend. Thank you very much. We've had so many views on certain videos. They're still climbing. I think one video reached its 1,000th view in for our channel, record time, in a very, very short time that we normally done in the past on there. So I believe that's going to be reaching our top echelon of videos on this channel, which right now we're close to 8,000 on one video itself, and 5,000 on another. So in our top 5, I think this is going to be in that top 5 very, very soon on there. And I thank you those for being there, for liking, subscribing, sharing these videos. Thank you very much. Thanks to this Svengoolie fan groups out there also that has passed on these videos as well. Thank you. Thank you for MeTV also, who has pushed some of these videos on there. I've seen them they've put my video on their playlist. So thank you to MeTV out there as well. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Obviously, we know about the Doctor Who so-called holiday special. It's no longer a Christmas special, or New Year's. It's a festive episode that they try to push on there. And there are plenty of YouTubers out there. If you want to know details, all the details of the episode, what went on and stuff like that, I'm just going to briefly skim over a couple, here and there on certain things on a couple of episodes of the past season. And it's, to get a full review on that, there are other YouTubers, Nerdrotic, as Heel versus Babyface. They all have complete detail of those episodes, and I suggest hit those if you're looking for that. What this is going to be a complete bashing of the BBC and the Doctor Who executive producers. Many years ago, and I've talked about this many ago. I'm going to go all the way back to the 1980s. Before the big networks came out, at the young days in fact, actually before Fox Television, there wasn't even Fox Television at the time. You had the major networks, and you had the couple of independent stations. In my territory was Channel 11, WPIX, and of course WWOR Channel 9. And one thing about the weekends, they tend to show some science fiction shows and stuff like that. You see, late night, you've gotten the Star Trek. My dearly departed grandmother from years ago used to watch Star Trek. She didn't really understand English well. She knew a couple of words, but I tell you, she used to watch Star Trek. I would say she was a fan, but she would never admit she was a fan. But she watched it because I watched it when I was younger, and the times where I was a kid and I went to bed early. I guess she would watch it, waiting for her daughter to get home, my mom. But there were other things that came on. In fact, on Saturdays, they used to throw a couple of unusual shows on WWOR. One day I saw a picture in the TV guide of an unusual face, and the title below it said Doctor Who. And I said, Doctor what? What is this Doctor Who? And I looked at the face, and it didn't match to the character on the show. And what actually the face they used was a Sontaran for the cover piece that they put in there in the advertisement in the TV guide on there when they used to advertise shows. If you never known or never had a TV guide before the times of you can get your show castings on cable. You don't even have to buy a TV guide anymore. But there was a time where you had to buy a book or get it out of the newspaper and find out what was on TV. And this is how I found this out. And the first episode, the very, very first episode I saw was a episode called Robot, the Robot series, which introduced a newly regenerated doctor, played by one of the marvelous actors to ever don the character name of the doctor, Tom Baker. And it got me interested. Because it was only, these were at the time when they were episodic, which basically you only saw with the commercial about 28 minutes of an episode. So it got me hooked. I was like saying, "Whoa, what is this?" And I went back every week to catch more and more and more. After a time period, WWR stopped playing them. I was able to catch them on other channels, specifically PBS was playing them as well. And slowly, as we progressed further, cable came along, and you were able to see it other ways. Video came along as well, so you were able to buy them, or rent them at the time, and you were able to see episodes. And I got to see those episodes, and then realized that there were older episodes before Tom Baker. And I went looking for those, and I went to conventions to find those. And I bought. I had to admit it. I did buy a couple of bootlegs at the time. That was in my younger days at conventions. I even joined a Doctor Who group, the Pridovians of Princeton at the time. I don't even know if they still exist. Went to a couple of things. Went to a cricket match. Because that's what you did back then. When Tom Baker went out and Peter Davison came in, he did cricket, and that's some of the things you did. When you went to Doctor Who events and stuff like that, part of the groups and stuff like that, you had fun doing things from the Doctor Who series. You dressed up like Doctor Who. And after a while, you got used to it, you stay on that, then suddenly Doctor Who vanished. It disappeared for a while. That was after Sylvester McCoy. And then they came back and tried to bring it back in American version via Spielberg's company. And they did a Fox movie of the week, which they had a good cast. Eric Roberts played the Master. I mean, who would think Eric Roberts as the Master? And that was okay, Then that just kind of shunned away a bit, and suddenly we had Christopher Erickson, to come back in as the Doctor, and it's a new series, a new adventures and stuff like that. And someone gave me a bootleg of that one too. That one came from I was well into my production days, and I had a friend who basically worked with the overseas networks and was able to get me a copy of the episode, that primary episode with Rose was the episode called, and I was back in again. It came back in, and you had Tennant and Smith and Capaldi, and then suddenly they said, "Listen, we're going in a different direction. We wanted to bring a woman to the show," and I wasn't against it. And knowing that they brought in Jodie Whittaker, and at first I was like, "Hey, listen, I've seen her Broadchurch. She was a good actress. I've seen her in Attack on the Block. If you haven't seen Attack on the Block, it's a great movie. It's a science fiction film. With another side, another person in science fiction." From another science fiction fandom, the Star Wars. You had John Boyega in there. You had John Boyega and Jodie Whittaker in the same movie, and that was a good movie. I enjoyed it. It was fantastic. And I said, when they said, "Oh, Jodie's going to be the next Doctor," and I said, "Oh, I'm okay with that." Wasn't okay with the guy taking over the helm, Chris Chibnall. I mean, hey, his Broadchurch was okay, but I there was an episode or two I think he did. I'm trying to remember the episodes. I didn't like them that much. And I was like saying, this is the guy going to helm them? And they said, no, I'll give them the chance. Boy, was I mistaken. Because what they did to this show, what the BBC has done to the fandom, one, they've insulted the fandom. And Chris Chibnall has said this. And Jodie has said some words also that I have had a big distaste for. And it's just a big middle finger to the fandom, because they say like, oh, the fans are old. Those fandoms, they're old. Get rid of them and stuff like that. Not knowing this, that's where your money comes from. That's where the fans, the true fans that go to the conventions, that spend the money on the videos, that spends money on the audiobooks and the t-shirts and the figures and the models and everything, the money that comes into you that keeps you going, you've pushed away. And with this special, you've just lost another amount. You've had the special, and people say, well, no, it's not declining and all that. The numbers say it for itself. This past special on the overnight numbers itself is somewhere about 4.86, which is a reduction of about 500,000 from the previous special. 500,000 viewers. And considering there was not much on that channel, and you had Captain Jack, that they thought, oh, let's bring Captain Jack in, it'll help us with the ratings and all that. It didn't help them much. Would it have been lower if Captain Jack was there? Yeah, it would have been even lower. But it only helped them just a tad. It didn't even help them surpass last year's episode. Just the stories itself. The stories that they've put. You've heard this from Neurotic. You hear this from As Heel versus Babyface. You've heard this from Doomcock. And you say how horrible this show has been. The Timeless Child episode has destroyed this TV show. To the point where they say, well, Hartnell is not the original. William Hartnell is not on there because we have to have a woman in command. We have the woman in the show. Not knowing, not thinking back that they have taken Verity Lambert's vision for this show. A woman who produced the show in a company, in a television company, that it was hard to be a woman in a company like the BBC network, and she was able to get a show like this produced. That the first episode didn't do well for the reason that basically at that time period, it was the time that John F. Kennedy was assassinated. So basically people paid attention, even in the UK. So she, in her wisdom, was able to convince them to re-air that episode, and the rest was history for that show. But now they've taken it. They've taken and spat on it. Spat on Verity Lambert's legacy. They also spat on the face of Sidney Newman and Donald Wilson, two other creators of some of the best stories you have ever heard. And Sidney Newman was a guy who says, I didn't want bug-eyed monsters and stuff like that. He wanted something different, and he got it, even though he did get a bug-eyed monster. You have to laugh at that, the Daleks episode. Clear my throat there. And you have to look at it, and you see how they spat on all these people. This was a great show. Didn't have a great budget, but they were able to get great stories out of it. Douglas Adams wrote for the show. One of the greatest writers, I think, in history. Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, wrote a fantastic book. fantastic novels that he put on there, and he had great episodes. He wrote great episodes for Doctor Who. I did a show a while back. I think I might put it back up again. That I talk about some of the best episodes, including some of the Douglas Adams stuff. I think I might have to put it up or re-edit it or something like that. I might put that. I have to decide on that and look at it from one direction to the next and see what I can do. But I'll tell you what Doctor Who meant to me was a story that was told to me every week, and I was anticipated every week. And then when you have people like Chris Chibnall sit there and just tell the fans to screw off. That is, you know, if it was me, I would have fired him right there. This is the same thing that's happening over at Disney with the fandom, with Kathleen Kennedy and all that. They're like, oh, we're trying to make it better. We're trying to make it better. You know, include that. You know, we have to have a woman and stuff like that. There've been plenty of women in Doctor Who, plenty of great characters. Well, they were companions, but they were strong. Some of them were strong. Some of them were, you know, they were weak, but they turned out to be strong later on. You had Sarah Jane, who got her own TV series, not once, but twice. Because most people don't remember K9 and Friends. They tried the pilot the first time around, and it was a good episode, K9 and Friends. But it didn't get picked up. It needed more to it. And then it took years later, and they came out with Sarah Jane Adventures. You know, they took away from me the man who was a grandfather, the man who was a hobo, the man who was a very brilliant, educated man, a man who acted like a child, a man who knew where to stand and told others to be brave. Another who was a man who was very neurotic, and very, how can I put the word? He always admired himself. I can't think of the word, but he always looking at himself, and that basically put himself forward, but he did help others. And then he was very mysterious. Very mysterious. Those were the early men of this series. Even though the others were just as important, Tennant and Smith and all that, but those classic doctors stand out as well. And that's what Chris Chibnall has done. He's destroyed those men behind that were some of the greatest storytellers. They fought many things, traveled to many different worlds, many different times. They had to leave some of those they loved behind so they could move forward. And then they lost many of certain companions. One that reaches out to me is the death of Adric. When they were fighting the Cybermen to save the Earth. And spoiler warnings, you find out that basically Adric fell into what you would say the cause of the destruction of the dinosaurs. That it was a ship that caused it, not an asteroid. And you felt very emotion into the next episode as they carried that into the next episode on the death of Adric, who was with them for quite some time, from the Tom Baker era to the Peter Davison era. And then you said goodbye to many of the other ones and replaced. There were some good stories and there were some bad stories. A lot of good stories and a couple of bad ones in there in between. Colin Baker ones got a little crazy, But I think the Trial of the Time Lord happens to be one of its best. And then they faltered on that. Now we're hearing that there's a possibility, and the rumors are back again. Bounding in the Comics wrote this out, that Jodie Whittaker now may leave the series after the next season. Am I applauding that? I'll see it when it happens. To me, Doctor Who has died at the last Clara episode. As much as I like the episodes after, a couple episodes after, when Clara left aboard her own TARDIS, I consider that the final episode. Because basically after that will be considered parts of the destruction of the next, of the Doctor Who series. And I can't look at those again. I can't look at those episodes because I know what is coming. I know the fate of this series and where it's coming. So I like to leave at that moment of happiness of what happened with Clara and Peter Capaldi's Doctor. And to leave it at that point. Even though there was a great speech. And I put that in my mind. I put that speech right before the regeneration out of Peter Capaldi. I put that in this episode. And not a regeneration episode as of yet. Maybe that's how they'll be able to save it. If someone comes in and becomes smart enough to just erase what they've done. But I think the damage is well over. I mean, I'm shocked. You had people like Chris Noth in this episode, this current special, who happens to be a very good actor, and I loved him in Law and Order. He was great on them. People loved him as Mr. Big and Sex and the City. Overall, he's a very good actor, and for him to do a role like this, it's just, a character of this nature, and then how they ruined the Daleks. They've totally misunderstood the Daleks. They've misunderstood this. I didn't like back when they redid the Cybermen. I didn't like that as well, that they had them from an alternate reality. I wanted them to continue the Telos, Telos and Monda Cybermen, even though they sort of like incorporate together. That was like one of the things I didn't like. But I wanted them to continue those. And there were many other villains they could have redone. The Ronnie, the Monk, many different stories that they could have done. But they didn't. They just wanted to go along and throw in all this woke social justice warrior type episodes that just completely destroys. Because you know why? They want to make it their own because they think that they're going to gather the people around them and say, oh, this is such a brilliant show. It's so, because she's so powerful and all that. No, it isn't. We, the fans, have nothing against women. Nothing against minority, because they have been women, strong women in this series. Rose is a perfect example. Martha Jones, Sarah Jane, Nyssa, Tegan. There have been many, many different women in this series that have stand out, and we still love those characters. For people to say, oh, we have to have minorities and this and that, and there have been. There have been. We've had people who have been gay on the show. Captain Jack. Their way of doing things, and I keep bringing back and I keep harking back on this, The Expanse. The Expanse is one of the best science fiction shows of all time as of now, for this reason. It is well written. It is very diverse without having to discuss that it is diverse. The problem is these people saying, hey, I'm the doctor and I'm a woman. Or telling the fans, suck it up. This is where the show is. And that's what happened. It happened on this past episode. They insulted the fans by telling you, change is going to happen. And you got to live with it. The show has always changed, and we have also lived with it. But what you've done with it is you've taken it, put it in a basket, poured gasoline on it, and poured shit manure in it, and lit it. Because that's what you've done. I know I've gone long with this, but it's a shame. The ratings keep going down and down and down, and they don't understand. BBC's losing. People are canceling their licenses, their TV licenses, because of the programming, the crap programming that they're doing, and the shows just keep going down, down, and down. And you have a show like The Expanse that's doing phenomenal, even though it's going to go one more season. But the writer says, no, we're going to continue. We're going to continue. If it's not on Amazon, it's going to be somewhere else. That is great science fiction when you can do that. We've gone through 5 episodes of The Expanse, and every one of them has been fantastic. But meanwhile, Doctor Who, in my eyes, is dead. The show is gone. It's burnt. There's nothing left of it. So we may discuss classic Doctor Who on this channel, because that's all that's left of it is the classics and some of the series lines. That's all that's left. So comment below. Tell me, how do you feel about this? This was like a rant in itself. And I threw this together just because I was so upset. I was so upset what they've done to this series. I still cry out in anger. Hit that subscription, hit that like, notification bell, share this video. We have more to come this week. Thank you for subscribing and being there, putting out this video on all of our platforms. Thank you very much. We'll talk again real soon. Bye-bye now.